Little handle on the side. Little button.
I think we're having fun.
It's hard to, if you're only one person, says you can share a message and do all the other stuff. And you're naturally gonna miss some things on it.
I mean, because you can't keep working from there.
Yeah, you wake up. You gotta go.
Have you started yet?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Put on my other glasses.
Do you have a mic? Can you hear me? Did you hear me? Okay. Documentation.
Very important.
Good morning, online people. We're going to start in just a couple of minutes. I would think you're all East Coasters, but I know you're not. I saw a couple of Colorado and a PNW, Pacific Northwest. It's early. Dedication, that's right. I don't know who it is, but if it's who I think it is, she already knows all this stuff. Yeah, that's what it is. Is it? Okay. Good morning, Shannon.
Legislator said, as president, I will deploy military against Congress. Great. Man,
Anybody have any epiphanies last night? Any aha, oh my gosh moments?
I saw Twitter all night long. Like,
Did you dream about little
You
blue
dreamt
birds?
about Twitter.
yeah.
That's too bad. You what?
she was at her bird feeder.
She's getting ready to teach at home.
No, forget it.
Yeah, I'm feeling for you.
Utilize is what it is.
Well, for any online people or here in the classroom, we did stay and we retaped the first two sessions. It's now called, I think, Accounts Overview in Google Products. That'll be in the video sessions because we had the taped version was only as good as the streaming version, which was not good at all. So we redid that last night. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. Our first session this morning is mostly question and answer. So I'm hoping, if you don't have a lot of questions, online or here. Online, if you have some questions you'd like to ask us. I did pull a couple off the online chat room and other places last night. I don't know if there's any in the email, but if you have any questions, things, hanging chads, as it were, things that you have out there that you'd like us to try and answer, this would be the time to do it. We have about a half an hour to deal with those. So right off the bat, in the room, is there anybody, and Brent has a microphone so we can hear that online, but anybody have any larger questions, things we didn't touch, things you want to clear up? Really? Okay, so are there any immediate online, Serena, do you see any immediately online questions that, we have some written down, but I'll wait and address those if. Okay. Oh, wait, suddenly we have two. We'll let Carl go first and then Tom.
I know you said this stuff changes daily, so you can't keep up with everything. But I got to throw out a term that my 25-year-old said. What about Snapchat, Dad? That's what I use all the time. I mean, I have no idea what it is.
Well, and I can describe what Snapchat is because I have teenagers, and Snapchat is where it's an interesting tool. I have not found a purpose for it on incidents that I need it for, and I can't imagine why like a prevention team on a project would need it. But maybe there's a reason. You take a picture like of yourself. Here's my 18-year-old will take some weird picture. You can draw on it, make it look really silly, put a hat on and a mustache, and then you send it to somebody, and the person receiving it also has to have Snapchat. As soon as you can set, the sender can set how long you have to look at it. I might give you 1 second. I think you can only do up to 7 or 8, I mean maybe 9, not very long, 9 seconds tops. And so when you open it, you can see it, and then it disappears, it's gone. It lives nowhere. It's just gone. So you only have, so from the moment you open it, you only have whatever amount the time they gave you to look at it. So for kids, it's funny to do, weird pictures. You don't have much time to go, hey look, and then it's gone. You can't really show it to that many people. But it's the phenomenon amongst young people that has got everyone all a Twitter, so to speak, is that it can be used for things like sexting. You get this quick picture and then it's gone. So that's been some of the trouble with it, but I haven't found a way to use it.
So Snapchat was kind of the beginning of this anonymous app trend concept, and so now, like we showed you yesterday, it's gone to the farther extreme of Yik Yak, where you're completely anonymous in the sense that you're just posting based on your geolocation. I have heard and seen some people using Snapchat to try to create a more fun preparedness side messaging, where they'll create some messages and they'll send it out to the younger audience of people that are following them. That message will disappear within 5 seconds or whatever the term is. But you could get creative in trying to do that. The difficulty that you're going to have is trying to get people to follow you, because it's not like, at least my understanding of it, it's not like a blog or Twitter where it goes out publicly and whether or not people are following you, they can still see it. Here you have to build up a Snapchat following so that you have somebody to send this stuff to. So that's one of the issues you have to address there. But I've also seen it being used internally between teams, where PIOs in an internal network can send messages back and forth, and then poof, they disappear after 5 minutes. Mostly it's been in trial networks. I'm not sure how if they're really using it during an incident per se, but it could, in theory, be a tool that you use to maintain internal communications. Because it's really simple to pull up. You can either narrate a message into it, you can take a picture of yourself and scribble on it. There's a couple different ways that it could be used internally if you wanted to.
For me, mostly it was a fun app. I mean, I did it for a little while with my kids, and then frankly, I don't have time to be good at everything. And if I can't pretty quickly find a way for it to be really useful in the work I do, it goes by the wayside. I focus on getting better at the tools that really serve my public. If you could think of a great way to use it, then use it. It's kind of like Vine. Vine is this 6-second video. I've seen lots of people swear by Vine. I can't think of anything I can show you in 6 seconds that's going to accomplish any of my greater communication objectives. I can't educate you about almost anything in 6 seconds. It's fun. I can show you a picture of a fire in 6 seconds, but I can also take a short video and do it. So why do I need to learn another program to do it? So I haven't found a reason. That's not to say anyone else.
And I will say I have used Vine on incident during the floods. We went up, and all I had was my phone. I didn't have enough bandwidth to actually load a video to YouTube, but I did have enough bandwidth to take my 6-second video, and Twitter would take that, because it's only 6 seconds, it's not nearly as much data, and I could get that image out, or that video out, and it does. Now your tweet doesn't have text that says turn around, don't drown. Now it says turn around, don't drown, because if you don't turn around, this is what's coming up around the corner, and you have a 6-second video on the flood, and it makes your point come across. So you have to work within the limitations. Obviously 6 seconds doesn't get a huge message across, but from the preparedness side of things, you can get really, really creative with 6 seconds. I'm not sure if it was in the video we watched earlier, but earlier iterations of that social media video we watched said that the new advertising is 6 seconds. You get your message in 6 seconds. So I think that Vine might actually have more of a role in the preparedness project messaging than perhaps on an incident, but you could use it both ways.
Yeah, I could see. I actually could see that if you had people who already knew how to do it, and that were on your group, your PIO group, and you were at an incident, and they said, and they were out on the line with the news crew, they could send a 6-second video to the Twitter account of the news crew covering the fire. That would be great. But whether I'm going to focus a lot of attention and time on trying to make a way for this to work for me on an incident, I just don't have time. I only have so much time to get good at so many things, so that wasn't mine. But if it's yours and you can figure out a way, I say bring it to the table when you come.
Absolutely. And to add to that even further, for those of you, I believe, with Apple phones, I don't believe it's on Android app, but Twitter now allows you on your iPhone to take a 30-second video and load that directly onto Twitter. So that's a new function that just came on board about a month or so ago, I believe. I don't know if it's crossed over to the Android app yet, but if you're on your iPhone, you can either take 30 seconds worth of video independently of the app and then load it through the app, or you can be in the app itself and take 30-second video.
That I totally see the application for. Instantly, I can walk around camp. I can have one of my PIOs assigned who's doing Twitter kind of stuff and say, I want you to go do interviews with Brent in logistics. You got 30 seconds to tell me how you set up a camp for 3,000 people, and I can post that right to Twitter. Stuff that's interesting about camp. Take them on a little camp tour. This is finance, here's Serena, this is what they do, and little interview. 30 seconds I can do it. 6, I can't get much done in there, but in 30 and loaded right up, I can totally see that. So
That doesn't disappear, right?
and no, that doesn't disappear. It's only Snapchat that vanishes as soon as you play it. So. Okay, Tom, you had a question?
Yeah, very basic, almost going backwards, about Facebook.
Uh-huh.
Can you re-explain the pages in Facebook? Can you use them to categorize types of audiences or types of things you want to do?
Yes, you can. Actually, you
So-
answer this one. I was thinking blogger.
Again, Facebook pages versus your Facebook profile. Your Facebook profile is you, the person. So that's where you're going to go post pictures of your kids, your grandkids, talk about your vacation, etc. On your page is what is set up for your organization, for your incident. Now, when we say page, that doesn't mean you're going to set up 5 different pages for your incident. One is for safety messages, one is for incident information, one is for maps. That's not what we mean at all. It's one page for your incident, one page for your organization or whatever it is. You then can collaborate with other people on your team, so have multiple editors on that page. If you wanted to reach out to a specific demographic, a specific group, you can get a little bit more targeted when you hit send on your posts to try to play with Facebook a little bit to try to see if you can send that message to more of a female audience or a younger audience or perhaps a Spanish-speaking audience or something. Facebook will allow you to do a little bit of demographic targeting, if you will. Some of that, if you want to really, really get into targeting and boosting your message, may require a little bit of money to boost that message through and to get into a little bit more detailed. But you can do some, it's just a little limited.
Is there a crossover between your personal profile and the page?
But what Facebook has done is they want you to have a personal profile to set up this page, because Facebook really is wanting to make sure that there's a real legitimate person behind this page. They don't want robots setting up pages. You'll see that on Twitter a lot, where you have these fake sites. You hear it in the news during the elections, how all these politicians have fake people following them. Facebook really tries to not have that happen. That's why it says you have to have this Facebook profile to set up a page. Okay?
But you can't, your personal
other
profile.
than the fact that you're connected to it, the user, on the user end, when they see your page, is not going to really know who's behind that page. They're not going to connect those dots unless you come out and explicitly say it.
So even if you set it up and then you leave the incident, like your team leaves and it still is functioning, that's fine. You don't have to be there just because you set it up. It's set up and it's done and it goes on.
One thing that gets some people tripped up a little bit when they're posting is if you're the admin of that page or you have authorship rights of that page and you go issue a post, sometimes it'll say this post was published by person XYZ. And people are like, well, I didn't want people to know that. I wanted it to come as the page. Well, it did. You are the only person who's seeing that because you have admin rights. If you go off to somebody else's site from the public side, that little published by XYZ is not going to show. That little subtext, if you will, is simply there for the people who have admin rights so they can know who wrote this. So if you do see that underneath there, don't get too concerned. People, I've had many different phone conversations with people said, how do I get my name off of there? That wasn't supposed to happen. And I say, calm down, go to a public site, look at it from the public side, and if it's still there, then we have an issue. But it should not be there at that point.
The whole thing with friends and stuff, that's limited to your personal.
Use the mic if you're.
The whole thing about friends and that kind of
So
thing.
when it comes to Facebook, your friends on your profile, you have to make friend connections depending on your privacy settings. In order for them to see your content, in order for you to see their content, you have to be friends. On a page, you can either have it set up so they have to like you, or it can be a completely public page so you don't actually have to like you. Now, if they do click the like button, they become a fan of your page. Now Facebook is going to add them to the algorithm so that when you post something, it is going to go into their feed. That's the plus of having someone actually like you. If they have not actually taken that step to like you, then they have to physically come, just like a website, type in your URL to come find you. So you really want to encourage people to come up and hit that like button. And not only do we want to hit them, this gets a little bit more detailed, but we want to encourage them not only to like, but then after they've liked the page, there's another little setting that says follow, which means that they're going to actually get pushed those messages. And some of that changes a little bit because Facebook has changed up their algorithms a little bit, and it's a kind of a super secret algorithm. But it helps if you tell them like our page and then select follow, and that will help them make sure that they get those updates.
So on a public page, pages have fans, personal profiles have friends.
Correct.
Sean.
With that being said, how do I transfer? In a transfer, I leave the incident, but now someone else is going to manage that page. How do they get on there when I'm the administrator and it's my personal profile that opened that page?
That you set it up with you set up a page with your personal profile, but now that that page is set up, you can come in underneath that page and add collaborators. You can add additional people with admin rights, with authorship rights, with other usage rights. If you would end up having to demob from that incident and have to leave that entire thing, you can take that page and give somebody complete control over it, and you can then remove yourself.
We'll talk about that in a minute, because we're going to talk about the whole transition of social media when you're on an incident.
Yep.
So is there anyone else in this room? Or yes, go ahead.
I'd still have one more. With Gmail Plus, someone wants to send me an email. They want me to add them to my circles. When I'm adding them to circles, how do I separate business and pleasure? Like if I add them to my circles, am I now adding them to the circle of work people?
So you're talking about Google Plus. When someone says, I'm requesting you to add you to our Google Plus network, and that's coming to your email, I have it set up so I have a personal email and a work email that's both Gmail. So I can actually have circles on both sides, one professional, one personal. Now let's just say you have one email account. The beauty of the circle is that's how you manage your personal and your professional life. You can turn your personal people into a personal circle and your professional people into a professional circle. Those people that happen to be in both boxes, you can put in both circles. That's the whole point of a circle, is to help you manage that piece. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's not confusing at times to manage all that. It takes a little bit of work to set up those circles and say, I'm going to have these 5 different circles for whatever reasons, incident-based, home-based, project-based, whatever it is. But you set up those circles, and that's your personal management system.
And then as soon as someone requests, all your circles you set up come up, and you just pick which one. I have acquaintances, friends, business, and I just put them in whichever circle that I want to. And there's a different approach. Nathan's got work. He's got work stuff, and then he's got home stuff. I just have one. I don't have time to manage 17 accounts. He's got a bazillion accounts. I just manage one. I don't really care if work people are suddenly my work people saw my Facebook. I don't care. I don't put things on my work, even on my personal page, that are going to be exceptionally controversial. I just don't use it for that. Maybe I'm just not that kind of person. So I don't worry about there being a sort of a smushed line between the two. Some people do, and you can do it either way. It's a matter of what you want to manage.
One of the things that we teach when we go to teach a basic G290 or even an advanced PIO course is anymore with our social media accounts, and we learned this yesterday with the examples that were given with the Forest Service and the Boston bombing, is even your personal accounts, no matter how locked down you think they are, there's always a way for something for that to leak. And when you're in that public information world, you really have to be living above the fold. What I mean when I say living above the fold is anything you post on Facebook, anything you post on Twitter, anything you post anywhere, personal account or professional account, would you be comfortable with that message being shared above the fold in your local newspaper, front page? If you can be comfortable with that, then I don't think you have an issue.
It's like people don't mind photo, if you don't have to worry about photo radar if you're never speeding. you know, I mean, I do this for a living, so it is part of my life, personal and professional. And I guess if you were a really, really hardcore, controversial political person, you wouldn't be a public information officer because you'd have to keep your opinions out of everything. I mean, that's what we do, you know. Our opinion isn't what we talk about. So anyway, that's a PIO discussion. But yeah, I think you should. Is the mic over to? We'll get to the online audience next for questions if there are any.
Mine's about Twitter. If I wanted to tweet somebody that I am not following, you know, I just see something on the news and you want to comment or whatever, you know, how do I actually do that?
You just put the @ symbol in with their username.
At the beginning.
Then remember, that's a mention. It lets them know you're talking about them. It isn't a direct message. It isn't a private message, but it puts out a tweet. If I'm, say, a newscaster and I do a story and you're a viewer, and I'm Chris Erickson, then you want to make a comment on the news story. Hey, I loved your opinion on the thing. I agree with you. You would write your message, and in there somewhere you would put @Chris Erickson, whatever my username was, and you don't have to be following me. It'll go out into the Twitterverse and they'll see it. If they're following their mentions, which I guarantee you a news figure would be, somebody's going to see that you've mentioned that and agreed with them. The same as I look for who's mentioning my name when we're on a fire, because if somebody hears me do an interview or sees me at a public meeting and they mention my name, I kind of want to see what it's a little bit of a vanity search, but you can look for what people are saying when they specifically mention you. They're doing it for a reason because they want you to see that they're saying this about you.
Okay, got it.
So.
Thank you.
And when you as an agency, it's extremely important that you are monitoring when people are mentioning you. And at Twitter and other applications make it simple because you have that notification tab that's going to give you a notification. Your phone's going to buzz or something's going to happen. And it's important that you respond to that. Think of social media as like a phone. When someone mentions you on Twitter, it's like they called you up and said, hey, XYZ, I'm talking to you about this. You wouldn't just hang up the phone and ignore them, right? You would answer them. You would give them something. So on incidents that I've worked where I have control of social media, I tell the people that are working for me and working around me, my goal is to have 100% engagement with people who mention us, who ask questions. I want to have some sort of response, even if it's simply, thanks for that message, it's been received. Some sort of response to show that it's a two-way street.
So people mention you're on an incident, if they say @ABC Fire, they're doing it because, and then they say, wondering if the fires cross so-and-so road. They're usually mentioning you because they have a question in there somewhere, and you need to pay attention to that. So, okay, so some of the, is there any current online ones?
Yeah, there was. Give me a second, I gotta get back to it.
Can we answer the mapping question?
No, that one's too long with this. She's got.
All right, so first question is there a mapping tool for the public to put their info into?
We have that question.
have
We
that one?
captured that one. Is there? Oh, that's going to take a little while, so we'll do that in a second. But
Okay. Somebody said couldn't find the share button when creating a Google map. Any ideas?
yeah, some people had trouble with the share button. After you've created your map, and you're back to the main map page, the one that lists where your map is, not the map itself, but the page where you started. Over to the right-hand side, just above where it says Published Map. Okay, you have to have already published your map. You will see a link over there, and it'll say gmail.com/ and then whatever name you put in the little white box. We'll have a link over there under Published Map. Click that link. Only that link will take you back to the map, and at the top is the share button. But it's not until you can't click on the main map name. You have to click on the published map name, which is that gmail.com/ whatever name you put in for the map. So it's not until you've done that, click on that link, take you to the map, and at the top sort of right center is a share button. If you don't see that, you haven't published or something, so you have an issue. Or if you go back to if you click on the map name, that's essentially taking you back to a draft of the map. And you don't have the share button because it's not published and ready to go. So that would be why. A couple quick things. We got some questions about transitions. And I understand that. That's been one of the things we've had to work out when we suddenly realize that here we are on fires, and now a new team comes in, and we built 17 things, and what do we leave you with? Or if we're transitioning back to the forest, how do we manage that particular thing? There's a lot of ways to do that, and I was going to, Nathan's going to bring up on the PIO bulletin board at NIFC, NIFC National Interagency Fire Center.gov. There's, if you can take Brent, shift over there. If at NIFC.gov, there is the PIO bulletin board, and when you go to the PIO bulletin board and you look under what's new, under what's new, you will see the tools PIOs use on incidents, and under that you can see a PIO transition form. And this doesn't have, there's a few things that aren't included, but this is a good way to it's got some tools to remind you to the transition things you ought to ask and think about, and among them are social media. So that's a form you can use that might be helpful. Here's the form, it's the Rocky Mountain team. You can put your logo in there, but you scroll down to the bottom, down, 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 and here it talks about INCIWeb, Twitter, who's updating, are there sites now this is generic, are there sites we have to maintain that, and so this is just to remind you, but let's talk a little bit about how do we actually transition that. So, yes?
I have another question.
Okay.
The last question that was here is, do you have a set of rules or policies for what you do and don't do, or what you do and don't share on social media?
Yeah, and we'll be talking about strategies a little later this afternoon, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But in terms of, and we don't need this slide up anymore, in terms of how, and this is how I do it, and that's not to say that this is the only way to do it, there's other ways. When I know that another team is coming in, or I know our team is leaving, I go and find out, well, who's coming in? Is another team coming in behind us, or are we transitioning back to the local forest? Once I know that, if it's another team, usually the lead PIOs talk to each other. I mean, they usually call me and go, hey, we're coming in, anything we need to know, what's going on? They try to get up to speed. At that time, I'm going to say, do you have a social media person coming with you? And if they say, well, I've got one, or I've got two, or I don't have anyone, because I've had all those things happen. And I will say, well, here's what we have set up. Which of those things do you feel capable of maintaining? Which can you handle? If they say all we can do is INCIWeb, okay. If they say we can do Facebook and INCIWeb, okay. If they say, well, we want to do this, maybe they have a preference for how they want to do something, they will tell me what they want left up. Based on what they tell me, I will then transition those other tools. As people know who have used INCIWeb, what you do on INCIWeb is you write a note at the top. This is the last update. We'll be posting on INCIWeb. The fire is transitioning back to the forest, or the fire is, we won't post that if it's going to another team because they'll just maintain it. But if it's ending, we put that ending statement, and then it just sits there, right? It's not like we take it down or throw it away or something. It just sits there. But it says this site's no longer being updated because it's and here's a phone number you can call for current information. We do the same thing with social media sites. If the new team coming in doesn't want to manage the blog, but they do want to manage the Facebook page, then I'm going to start telling people 3 days out, this blog is going to no longer be used as of this date, and you'll need to be friends, or you'll need to go like the Facebook page, because that's where that and INCIWeb, and we'll put the links in so people can go over that. We drive the audience to where we need them to be, and we try to give it some time. I mean, if you have 1 day, it's going to be harder to do, but usually you have an inkling this is coming. I mean, it rarely happens in 1 day. You have a couple days to do this. So I just transition them to wherever they want them to be. If all they want is INCIWeb, we put the same message on all these pages. We say, for instance, if it's just a local forest that's going to be taking over the fire, and they've got one public affairs person who's got 17 fires, they're not going to want to maintain this incident-specific page. They're going to handle it out of their office. So I'm going to put down, these pages are going to disappear. We hope we've served you well. If you have any last-minute questions, otherwise, as of this date, this is the phone number and the place you go to get it. Here's the INCIWeb page, and this person, this office, for questions, will be handling all of this. So we just transition it. In one case, we actually had in Oregon, we had I'm going to say SCFUMP, the South Central Oregon Fire Management Partnership, I believe is what SCFUMP stands for. They were really the Type 3 organization that was going to be taking the fire, and they had wanted to have a Facebook page for some time. So what we did in the meantime was we set up a Facebook page for them. We used their pictures, and we used a Gmail account they had. We set it up, and then we began to transition our audience over to their Facebook page from our Facebook page. So the incident one went away, but the permanent one that was going to last forever, we worked to transition. Now, did everyone go? No. I mean, it's up to that. We don't like shove them over. We say we really recommend when we leave, there's a new Facebook page for the Type 3 team. It'll be there forever. It'll be a good source of information for all fires in, South Central Oregon, and we moved them over. So we can help, and sometimes that's part of our actual delegation and mission is, where were we? In Colorado, they had an emergency management Twitter page, and they wanted to build the audience. So we tweeted not only on the incident, but on their account to build the audience on their account. So when we left, they had a much larger audience that was already tied into their Twitter account. So transitioning depends on what's coming your way, but you always have to think about, just like you do with InciWeb. And if we're leaving and we're disappearing, we put that same "this is the last update" on every page we have, and then it just lives there. And the nice thing is, on Blogger, if you have educational tools and great maps, people can keep going there and reading what you have there. You just have to make sure you have a clear statement at the top that says we're not posting here anymore. Okay, is there any other audience questions or anything about transitions?
3 minutes.
Okay, so the one last question we have before we move on to the next part is, somebody asked about, can you link a photo to a point on a map? And was that, or was this a different question then? Can you link a photo to a point on the map? Yeah. And yes, and we're talking about Google Earth. You obviously can, as long as you have a geolocated, but this is how to do it when you're building your own map.
So yesterday we learned how to do a Google Crisis map, and that's taking maps to the next level. I'm going to drop you down a couple levels to just normal maps. If you go to maps.google.com, and I have 2 minutes to show you this. So maps.google.com, you can come in here. I'm already logged into my email account. Notice under here it says My Maps. If I click on My Maps, I can see all of my maps here, or I can create a map. This is where, on a Google Crisis map, you were pulling in layers that had already been created. If you wanted to kind of create your own map and then have that as a layer that you're pulling into the Crisis map, this is where you'd start to do that, at least using the Google interface. If you hit create, I don't have time to go through all of this, but once you hit create, now I'm in a system where I can start building a map. So let's say I want to have a picture added to a point on a map. I come here, I add a marker, I'm going to put it on Boulder, why not? I can title this picture Boulder. I can give it a description. I can come in here now, find a picture. Notice it's very similar to your Google interface on Blogger, where you can find a picture on the web, a URL, a video search, or I should be able to upload a photo, or maybe not. It's not going to let me upload.
There's a search on the right. Can you just search?
So image URL. So guess what? I have a nice little image URL on my Twitter account, right? Don't I? Let's just grab that. This picture right here. Maybe not. Let's find a different photo. It's sometimes a little difficult to actually find the right link to a photo. Oh, come here, let's not be a pain. I did this earlier today. I go to the exact link here, try to click on here, copy link address. Let's see if I throw that URL in here. It doesn't like it. Let's go find something else on, let's just go to readycolorado.com. There's got to be an image on here somewhere. How about this image? Copy image URL. So there you go. Now I've added that photo in here. So there's a little bit of legwork that you have to do. Play with it. If you have a really specific photo that doesn't have a URL already, you may have to figure out how to upload that photo to someplace. So it gets a URL, and then you hit save, and now you have that URL. I tested this yesterday. You then can come in here. Once you've published this map, you can hit the share button here, give it all the details, everything you need to do. And there's your URL. You take that URL back into the Google Crisis map area you were creating. Instead of importing a layer, you create a layer with that link, and now you have your point with your picture.
You remember on that Google map, you had the option of import layers and create a layer. So you'd create a layer and then go to the bottom and you would tell it what kind of layer this is. In this case, you can bring in, because it's a Google product, you can bring in a Google layer from Google My Maps very easily. You don't have to create a KML or do anything fancy, you just bring it in. Now think about, I'm big into how do we apply this. Think about in terms of prevention. We talked before about you go around a neighborhood and the biggest thing for people is so maybe, let's say you have a prevention blog and you have a map on that blog. So you can go in and create a layer for your map that's on your blog that is pictures of homes in your area, whatever you deal with, pictures of the homes that have well done living with a defensible space. So you take the picture and you locate it on the map. Now you have a layer on the map that's, see what it, the layer of homes with defensible space. I mean, obviously you should get permission from the owner before you put their house on there. But so now I have 11 pictures. So I can go into your map on your blog and I can actually see houses that have defensible space. So I know whether I want to join your effort next week to take a tour. And you have to think about how can I use the tool toward my greater objectives.
Now again, that's just one quick demonstration. You can do it 1,000 other ways. If you try to do it 1,000 other ways, you might have to work with your IT people, you might have to work with your GIS staff and others to create layers for you that you can pull in.
Okay.
One more question.
There's a Gmail question related to maps, and when you create a map and say place a fire layer on it, does it stay live, quote unquote? So if a week from now when somebody goes there to see it, are they seeing the most current information, or do they need to update it regularly?
Okay, it depends. It depends what you put on. If you made a picture of the outline perimeter of your fire and put it on, that's not going to change. But if you bring in something like we talked about GeoMac yesterday, GeoMac layers are always updated. GeoMac layers are always updated. So if you bring in GeoMac and those layers, whatever they click on is going to be whatever your fire or team has fed into the system, because it's your team that generates the original GIS layer. It comes from there, it usually goes to an FTP site, and from the FTP site it's pushed out to a lot of places. So it'll always be updated. That's the nice thing about these maps. The only thing that would be stagnant is if you put a picture of something, that's not going to change or something. But a data stream, like the air quality monitors that we saw, those little dots on the map the other day, those feed from the air quality monitor. They change color depending on what, what's on your map will depend on what the air quality is in that area. Okay? So let's, just for those online, we're gonna break the stream here just for a minute, and then we'll come right back on so that we're trying to record in segments for later watching. So we'll stop the stream.